Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on this Monday. He's Ben Troop. I am Kevin Thomas. So much to get to coming off of draft weekend. Been a lot of wild things happening. And of course, the NFL again has done a tremendous job of getting us to tune in, buy in, and care about people sitting up there going, and when the 175th pick out of Montana State, so-and-so selects. Oh, I can't believe that. It's like knowing that 99.99% of the people, I mean, there were people who were going, why are the Falcons drafting linebackers out of Western Kentucky? When 99.9% of the people watching, Ben, have probably not watched a single Western Kentucky game at the end of the day. But initial thoughts on overall Falcons, Jags, how do you think they did maneuvering the draft?
I think, Kevin, I mean, I agree with what you said. We already know this skeptical, spectacle, whatever you want to call it, known as the NFL draft. But what makes it intriguing is, one, I was outside of our top 10 challenge, in which, I mean, Kevin, the first three, I said, Kevin's looking like the guru. And then you just don't know. But it's the what makes the draft is, after the top, 100 or something picks, you start getting the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and the seventh round, and you start going, oh, I didn't know he went there, or, oh, they got him right there, or, oh, why did they get this? And I will give the fans a lot of credit. The fans are very, very up to speed on what team needs. The fans are very, very up to speed on who can definitely help this team. But let's face it, when you start talking about the North Dakota states and the Southwestern Missouris, and look, y'all have no clue who these people are. Starting with, I want to say the 28th overall pick, if I'm not mistaken. The young man, Mr. Strange, out of Chattanooga. Now, most of us have been to Chattanooga. You've never seen him play. And it was a Strange pick, and his last name is Strange, and he is a first-round pick going to New England. But the draft does it every year, Kevin. You start getting into these rounds, you have guys that's never played that get drafted. You got guys that have played that go undrafted. It's these storylines that be attached to some of these players. I want to say Cam Hayward's little brother got drafted by Pittsburgh, so not him. So now Cam Hayward's like, well, finally he can stop asking me for money. He can make his own money now. But I will say that the draft does always live up to it. What conference is going to have a lot of picks? I know we're going to get to the University of Georgia with their record-setting 15. Cincinnati had 9 picks. 9. So when people start talking about, I know it is the year of the dogs. I'm taking nothing away from them. But the Bearcats, number one, Georgia had the number 1 overall pick. The Bearcats had the 5th. No, they had the 4th. Sauce Gardner went 4th overall. I mean, Desmond Ritter became a Falcon. So I think that when you think about, the different teams that did a lot for themselves as far as recruiting, Georgia. I want to say LSU had 10, but Cincinnati had 9. When people think Cincinnati, come on, man.
There's a reason they were in the playoffs.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So I will say at the end of the day, it definitely lived up to it. And Kevin, it's going to be like this time next year, right? Think about this. As soon as the World Series happened, the way too early rankings of 2022, they come out. As soon as the NFL, Super Bowl, the way too early. As soon as it was over, the mock draft 2023 was already out. Why? Because we're going to look at it. What? They got him going number 10? We don't know who's going to go where outside the fact that Bryce Young and Will Anderson is probably going to be somewhere in that top 2 or 3. But, no, I think it definitely lived up to it. I think at the end of the day, it is 3 days now. If it was 7 days, I think you would still get the viewership because, hey, man, everybody want to have their moment. Some kid, I want to say, I think he went to like USF or something like that. Got drafted to Tampa. So hey, it was crazy to me. I just think that at the end of the day, we're attached to these players. Is it Tariq Carpenter?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had to get it. Georgia Tech. So I'm just saying, and I want to say, and this is crazy. Kayvon Thibodeau, I think is the only Oregon Duck that got drafted. Now he went 5 overall, but he's the only one. So. Hey, shout out to all the players that got drafted. Even if you went undrafted free agency, a lot of players went there, but it still lived up to it. Kevin, I mean, surprise, the SEC had the most players drafted. 16? I want to say 16 years in a row. That's not a surprise, but a lot of question marks. He didn't. Jalen Watermeyer, tight end out of Texas A&M, went undrafted. And I just think that a guy that had so much promise, It's crazy to me. I know we're gonna get to Mr. Nakobe Dean, but certain guys land in nice spots. It is the NFL draft. It is theater from pick one to Mr. Irrelevant.
It certainly is. And again, the Georgia with 15 players taken in the draft. That's a record from one school. 65 players from the SEC. Ben, as you mentioned, that is the most again of any conference in the draft in 2022. So the SEC continued to dominate. But the storylines inside the draft, the drama, I know you have said multiple times, I hate saying players slide in the draft. But I don't know what else you would say about Nakobe Dean, other than he slid. First-round talent, third-round injury report, I guess, is what teams were saying. Hey, this is a guy that comes into the league, if he's healthy, Ben, is going to be a big-time playmaker, has an opportunity to earn himself a lot of money in the course of his NFL career, but had the pectoral muscle. I mean, talking about first-round talent, did not go till into the third round. It wasn't like the top pick of the third. He was into the third round a little bit. Do you call that a slide? I know you hate using that term, but what do you think the metrics are there on Nakobe Dean, that a guy that was arguably, depending on who you talk to, the best player on that Georgia defense? And I know people will say, well, how do you argue who's the best player when they complemented each other so well? And, would they have been as effective if they weren't all on the same defense? Who's to say? But a guy that many people thought might have been the best individual player on that defense didn't go until the third round.
It was a head scratcher. And I don't like that the injuries come out after the draft. Obviously, those are things we weren't privy to. I know he didn't have the best pro day. I know he was kind of battling through injuries to get through his pro day. And Kevin, you know, just like I know, whenever you step out there, man, they're gonna go off that. They're not gonna say, "Oh, he was here on a bum ankle or torn pec." But I will say this about Nakobe Dean that's different than his teammate Travon Walker. Travon Walker was number one overall. Travon Walker was not an all-conference player. Travon Walker was not an All-American. Travon Walker didn't win any awards. Travon Walker won he won the national championship. Now Jordan Davis won a bunch of awards. Nakobe Dean won the Buckets Award. He was an All-American. He was an All-SEC, and he was all over the film. Like the thing that scares me about the National Football League is what you say, Kevin. What are they looking at? Travon Walker made some flash plays. I get that. Everybody makes a flash play here and there. Travon Walker had 5, 6 sacks. He had 9.5 career sacks in 3 years. 9.5. I am not, but he's also 6'5", 275, running 4.51. Now, we already know that it's a 37% success rate in the first round. I don't even want to know what it is across the entire draft. But if Nakobe Dean can't play football, then they don't exist. If you were watching Georgia in 2021, that middle linebacker known as Nakobe Dean was all over the field. He did not come off. He made flash plays, and he was the best player on defense, right? He might not was the most impactful. That could have been Jordan Davis. But Travon Walker goes number one overall. So one guy won the buckets, considered the best linebacker, in the country, All-American, and the list goes on and on. And I think, but Kevin, this is the thing. I don't think Nakobe Dean is 6 feet tall. He might be 5'11".
I mean, but I want to get your thought, because everybody around the draft was, there's concerns about the torn pec, and injuries. I mean, those things heal, right? I mean, when you've seen what he can do when he's healthy. I mean, are injuries that big of a concern in the National Football League that you could take a first-round talent and you can talk yourself off of that player for 2.5 rounds? I'm just asking. I mean, because again, a torn pec is a big thing. If I'm an offensive lineman and my pectoral muscle is torn, if that don't heal right and I don't rehab right and I don't get the strength back, well, my whole job is pushing guys off of me with those pecs. How big of a deal is one injury like that? Maybe it's a collection of a couple of things. I know he had maybe battled a few nagging things at Georgia, but one injury leading up to the draft that's going to talk you down 3 into the third round?
Yeah, because it just depends on what that injury is and how much that whatever that torn muscle is as it pertains to that player's availability. When you talk about a guy like Nakobe Dean, right? They're saying this. He was in the SEC. The SEC is not the NFL. It is the closest thing to it, but it is not the NFL. Those guys that you went up against in the SEC are going to be very similar, if not the same, to the guys you're going to be going up against. And you're dealing with injuries now. Now, that's going up against certain guys who are good. Not everybody you go up against in the league is good. Them guards that's going to come up to you, them tight ends go. So I think what they're saying is we're afraid to get a first-round pick on you because we want you to be an impact player. So if I can get quality down in the draft, so be it. And 32 other teams decided to wait to the. I know the Eagles eventually got him, but they scared all the teams away. Like, it only takes one. But they're saying, look, if he's coming into the league with injuries, how much is he going to have to play through that? Because you're going to have to play through with some in the National Football League. And Kevin, how much of it is an injury? Because I think what it was at his pro day, and we find out after the draft he had a torn pec. So whoever drafted him, he's going straight to the training room before he even put on the pads again. But I still think that Kobe Dean was good enough to be, at least a second-round pick, if not a first round. But he went in the third round, went to a good spot. I give you another name that we ain't talked about, Justin Ross. Justin Ross burst onto the scene, 3-4 years ago against in the national championship against Alabama, and had one of the best games we ever seen from a freshman. And the injuries hit. He went undrafted, and I think he's still a free agent because people are scared to touch him. Injuries will push you down farther than anything ever could. Travon Walker just showed you that if you are a physical freak at the combine, you can go number 1 overall. And so I just think that for me, Kevin, Nakobe Dean is a head scratcher, but it's a bunch of head scratchers in the draft. I mean, if you really look at it, and I know we're going to get to my Falcons, our Falcons, your Falcons. We love them, but they took Drake London, which ain't no fault of his own, and then a bunch of receivers came off, 5 to be exact, came off right after him. So he was going to go in some, but it goes back to what you said. Is he the best of the bunch? And hey, maybe they're trying to get bigger, but I mean, Olave, Williams, Wilson, Traylon Burks. He played in the freaking SEC. So, but like I said, the draft headlined by Georgia. SEC did what it did. Cincinnati 9 players. Freaking Georgia's punter got freaking picked in the 4th round. I mean, so I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I will say, but the draft definitely lived up to it. It shows why, football is still the creme de la creme as far as like American sports, taking nothing away from the other, pro sports. And like I said, Kevin, 2023, we will have, a front row seat to the top 10, maybe top 15 again.
We'll get to the Falcons pick coming up here in just a little bit. And home team Brandon Leak will join us coming up this hour to talk about those Falcons. But before we get into that, Ben, and look specifically at what they did overall, just give me an overall grade for Falcons. How do you think they drafted? A through F.
I give them a B, only because at the end of the day, every last one of those guys they brought in could definitely be and I give them a B more for the Desmond Ritter than the Drake London. They addressed a lot of needs. I think everybody's going to be key contributors. And Kevin, they won the perception battle. If Marcus Mariota does indeed stick up the joint, at least they got another rookie to kind of put in there.
Yeah. All right. So what about the Jags? Give me your quick grade on Jacksonville. Obviously, they had the number 1 pick. They traded back into the 1st round. Grade Trent Baalke and company. I know they caught a lot of criticism about what they did and did not do. Grade Trent Baalke and what they did during the draft.
I give them a solid C+. I think that Travon Walker is always. I'm going to have to wait and see, but I've never seen a number 1 overall pick. I mean, I understand upside, but you didn't make an all-conference team. You didn't make, you didn't make an award list. You didn't make an All-American list. And in your career, you had 9.5 sacks, and you played right beside, you played with Quay Walker, you played with Nakobe Dean, you played with Jordan Davis, you played with Wyatt, you played with 4 other first-rounders and seen back there at safety, and you only. So for me, I'm gonna give them a C+.
And I think Devin Lloyd into the 1st round was a nice pick.
A really, really good pick. I mean, a really, really good pick in the second. But that's the thing too. I just think that at the end of the day, Kevin, if you are, GMX picking a guy like Travon Walker, I need return on investment right now because he's going to be an opening day starter.
Yeah, we'll get more with that coming up a little bit later on the show. We'll come back. We'll take a look deep inside this Falcons draft and what they were able to do during draft weekend. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Monday. Again, you can catch us ESPNCoastal.com, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can see us broadcasting live there. Send us your thoughts and comments online or at Pigskin Radio there on Twitter. We'll chat with Home Team Brandon League, host of Home Team in Hamilton, and we'll look at the Falcons draft. Ben, but let's look at it. You get Drake London, wide receiver there in the first round. A lot of folks said, did you reach? I mean, was that the right wide receiver? Round 2, had a couple of picks. You go with Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. I probably butchered that man's last name. I apologize. I think it's Ebiketie. Goodness gracious. Troy Anderson got a linebacker from Montana State in round 2. A lot of people saying, boy, Nakobe Dean was there. You go Montana State. But apparently, the guy has numbers that Falcons liked and some other guys. Round 3, you get Desmond Ritter, quarterback at Cincinnati. And you go another linebacker, D'Angelo Malone out of Western Kentucky. So I know Falcons fans just watching Twitter, they were melting down. Nakobe Dean's there, and you just went Montana State and Western Kentucky. No pick in round 4. Round 5, they get Tyler Allgeier out of BYU, Justin Schaefer in the 6th round out of Georgia, and John Fitzpatrick out of Georgia in the 6th round, tight end as well. So why don't Falcons draft Georgia guys? Well, they just did. So there was some of that going. So a little bit of everything, but then, as you said, if you're on the roster and you see teams drafting guys that play your position, should you get nervous? Yes, Tyler Allgeier out of BYU, 5th round pick. And today, Mike Davis, they said, appreciate you, big man, but you're gone.
Yeah, Kevin, and that's the unfortunate realization of the draft is it's supposed to be enjoyable for the people that's currently in the National Football League watching it, and then you look up and if you are Deion Jones, I mean, they getting Arnold, Ebiketie, 2nd round out of DN/linebacker out of Penn State. Then they second round pick number 58. They getting Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. They're trying to get younger. So this is what the Falcons did. In free agency, they addressed the offense, right? They went out there. They re-signed Cordell Patterson, right? They'll go out there and they'll get Arden Key and those guys. They want to be able to get some help. Then they were saying, all right, they still need a number 1. What was going to be the number 1 overall pick? Drake London. Now, for those people saying that's a bad pick, nope, it's not a bad pick because 5 receivers went behind him. So somebody was going to get them, and I think they want to try to shore up his offense. And a guy like Drake London is in a similar mode and build as a Kyle Pitts. 6'5". Kyle Pitts is 6'5", has 6'6". You got 2 guys that can definitely stretch the field, and both on rookie deals. You talk about being able to get depth. I mean, who was going to be? We knew that Marcus Mariota was a piece, not a centerpiece. Desmond Ritter makes it so that Marcus Mariota knows, look, man, he's not a 1st round pick. He's a 3rd round pick, as Kevin, something you said. Either he could be the future or he could be the present. That will be up to Marcus Mariota and how he plays. And Kevin, sometimes you want to get a fan base, somebody to root for. The most loved person on the football team, just like the most loved person on, but whether that's the pros or in college, is the backup quarterback. Why? Because he ain't done nothing yet. And in our mind, he can do better than the guy that's in there. So I do think that's a nice pickup, getting a guy like Desmond Ritter, who had bottom of the 1st round type grade. You talk about a guy, you talked about a guy like Justin Schaefer coming offensive guard out of Georgia. That's adding depth late in the draft. Really, really late in the draft, I'm adding depth. And then you talk about, a guy like John Fitzpatrick. You need another tight end, right? I mean, Hayden Hurst has moved on, so you need to add another tight end because a guy like Kyle Pitts, let's face, he's not.
But you're not asking John Fitzpatrick to catch passes.
No, you're not. No, you want to make sure that a guy like Kyle Pitts is there for all 17 games. So when it comes to the running game, you put in certain packages. If you're going too tight, maybe you run to the Fitzpatrick side, and like I said, you add depth late in the draft. You addressed. We talked about you needed a defensive end, right? So what you do is you go get a guy like I want to say his name, Arnold Ebiketie. I'm gonna have to talk to I want PJ in the break, but you get a guy that play defensive end / linebacker, right? I mean, they brought over Lorenzo Carter, another Georgia guy, from the New York Football Giants on a 1-year deal, right? So you adding depth there. Then you talking about a guy, like Tony Anderson from Montana State. These guys are they can play linebacker, and they obviously can rush the passer because, Kevin, now I got to get cheap. Listen, while I'm paying less, I need to get more. I'm paying these guys to be 2nd round picks, but I need a lot out of them because they're young guys. We're trying to get younger, trying to get cheaper. I give Terry Fontenot a lot of credit because we didn't know how the draft was going to go for them. They needed everything. They still needed safety.
I was going to say the defensive picks were all basically
interior guys. Yeah.
There's linebackers and an end. Everything else was on the offensive side here.
I think too, Kevin, what they're saying is, what is harder to develop? Guys that have to play on the outside who's going up against the most elite athletes on the field, or guys that play kind of like in a box. Put the guys in the box, that front seven, let those guys get after the quarterback. I don't care what, if you teach a defensive end or an outside linebacker, nothing else. If you gotta master one skill, get to the quarterback. Because when people go, he had 100 tackles. How many sacks did he have? 3? No, I'd rather switch it. Give me double-digit sacks and 40 tackles. Learn how to set the edge. Because, Kevin, in this division, no. In football, period, the top 3 of the top 5 picks were defensive ends. Travon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau. That's 1, 2, and 5. That lets me know you got to be able to get after these dudes. When people say, well, wait a minute, Ben, well, who were the 3rd and 4th picks? That would be Derek Stingley Jr., Sauce Gardner. So the first 5 picks in the draft were all defense. All defense, first 5 picks in the draft. That lets you know you got to be able to have quality guys either covering these receivers or getting after the QB. So I think Terry Fontenot did a good job. It's the Falcons, Kevin. You know how it is. We are more. When people say, who's the most loved team in the state of Georgia for our professional team? The Braves. Who's the most scrutinized team? The Falcons. More than the Hawks? Yes. Way more than the Hawks. Like, the Hawks is just a bonus. The Hawks is a nice dessert. Like, we got a nice meal, and we're going to bring out but I will give Terry Fontenot some credit because Desmond Ritter in the 3rd round is a quality pick, especially when a lot of people had him slated to go into the top 32.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about him coming up in take 3. They did address the quarterback, but you look at the other areas on offense. Wide receiver, we talked about that with Drake London. Is that the Longview pick? You get Allgaier out of BYU, so you get a couple of skill guys. I'll go along with a quarterback.
Yes.
And some guys that you need to put your hand in the dirt. I don't know how much Justin Schaefer is expected to play. Probably not very much, would be my guess. At the end of the day, Ben, he gets in if somebody gets banged up on the interior of that offensive line. John Fitzpatrick, a guy that, as you said, will probably, as a 6th-round pick, need to be used.
Yes.
Not as a guy that's going to go out there and try to play 1-2, off of Kyle Pitts, but a guy that's going to need to be used. So you got usable pieces in the draft. I think you look at it and people say, are they impact guys or are they developmental guys? And people say, developmental, yes, you still develop at the National Football League level. People looked at the A.J. Terrell, developmental NFL guy. 1st-round pick, started right away, really didn't come into his own until he had a full year under his belt. And people said, I don't know. Could we be looking at the same thing with Drake London, where year 1, you might be going, this is the guy? That's the number 1 receiver, our first pick? I think he's going to be extra scrutinized, Ben, as we said last week, because he was the first wide receiver off the board, which means the Falcons could have taken anybody. And that means he was their number 1 guy on the board. So the guy you scouted and developed, he fits your system. I think he needs to have a nice season. I don't know if year 1, if it's going to be that way. He might be a developmental 1st round where the team's bad. He might not be great. And then you hope in year 2, he takes a big step forward. And I think that's probably, if we're honest with ourselves, what they're saying about a lot of these guys. I think round 2, young man from Penn State, they probably hope he's impact right out of the gate. But everybody else, Ben, I don't see as somebody that you drafted that's going to come in and just set it on fire. The track record recently of top wide receivers, hey, he's going to have 1,300 yards. I don't know if I'm expecting that from Drake London in year number 1 coming into the Falcons.
No, but Drake London is going to get a lot of opportunities because of where he got picked. Let's call it what it is. He's the number 8 overall pick. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to go out there and show what he can do. He's going to have to prove that he's past that injury. Every catch you've seen him, Kevin, is contested. But big body can definitely go up and get at his highest point. Going to have to see how fast he is. The jury is out on how fast he is. But, guys like Troy Anderson, he's going to get a chance to compete. You're a 2nd-round pick. You don't get a chance to compete, right? Desmond Ritter get to learn behind a guy like Marcus Mariota, right? Tyler Algier, he should know right now we are taking you seriously because the starter just got let go. So that's going to give you an opportunity. And I think a guy like, here's the thing too, though, Kevin. You think a guy like Justin Schaefer, look, come out of training camp, man. If you're the best guy, if it's close between a veteran and a rookie, I go with the rookie. It shouldn't be close. But I think what they did, they got a bunch of guys that are going to push the guys in front of them. That's what you want. Now, I don't think Fitzpatrick's going to push Kyle Pitts, but he's going to make him become a more well-rounded tight end because Fitzpatrick is more of a hand in the dirt tight end. Kyle Pitts is the you move around, athletic tight end. But you've added depth. And the fact that you got 2 linebackers / defensive ends, that means that whoever's at those positions now, Deion Jones, you guys should feel very, very nervous because as of late, a lot of money being paid, not as much as far as like return on that investment. So, Kevin, I think it's good. You address a lot of needs both in the offseason and the draft. Now you got to see how it come minicamp and training camp.
Again, Falcons with a host of picks. How did they play? We'll ask home team Brandon Leak his thoughts on this Falcons draft when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this Monday. The Falcons draft is over. They go and get a quarterback there in the third round. How does this draft class pan out here moving into 2022? Joining us here, host of the Home Team in Hamilton show there in Atlanta. Home Team, Brandon Leak joins us. Home Team, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing just fine, guys. How you guys doing today?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. Now that folks have had, the weekend to sleep on it, get their thoughts sorted out, how do you think most Atlanta fans feel about the Falcons draft here now they've had a few days to kind of let it soak in?
They should be feeling pretty well, in my opinion. I think that the Falcons were able to get 2-for-1s with just about every pick. That's to say they got the best player that they deemed available at the time. And they also feel the position of need. I think that, you can always, after every single pick, criticize who was in front or 3 spots behind. But the bottom line is the way things felt, the fact that the Falcons only moved up once using a draft pick they got in the Julio Jones trade to get themselves a pretty good defensive end. I think they did pretty well. And now it's a wait-and-see game over the next 3 years. The guys they got this year, the guys they got last year, the guys they'll get next year, and see what the Falcons look like then.
And Home Team, when you think about the depth, you talk about, you look at the draft, you talk about, Arnold Ebiketie, you talk about Troy, Anderson, you talk about D'Angelo Malone. You got some guys that cannot just play the linebacker position, but kind of multifaceted, especially when you're trying to be able to say, I want guys that can do multiple things, not just brush the passer, but can also drop in the coverage, can also stop the run. Talking about how much they benefit from having 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks.
Yeah, I think they came up with a great deal of value, Ben. And, you look at guys that can do multiple things, but also at the end, you look at the dogs that they picked up in Justin Schaefer and in John Fitzpatrick. Those are 2 guys basically that could help an offensive line block. And then Fitzpatrick, even though he didn't catch a lot of balls out of Georgia, Brock Bowers was catching everything. You got a guy who can also help you in the receiving game. So, Schaefer can play multiple positions. I think run blocking and receiving Fitzpatrick can help you. So even offensively, they came out with some guys that can do things that the Falcons need right now, which is to do more than one thing and let the offense, the defense, and the coordinators and coaches see exactly what it is that they have.
Home Team, Brandon Leak joining us here on 3 and Out. They get Desmond Ritter there in the third round. Home Team, is Desmond Ritter a quarterback of the future? Is he a guy they think they could develop into a backup? What was kind of the thought? I know people thought, hey, maybe you get a quarterback early, or you look ahead to 2023 since you've got Mariota in place and maybe choose from a larger pool of quarterbacks. What was the thinking there with Desmond Ritter?
I think it goes to what we just talked about, guys who have multiple roles with the organization. I think Desmond Ritter is one as well. He could be a guy that you develop with the third round pick. He is somebody that, he was a winner in college. He generated 115 touchdowns. You look at his passing and rushing TDs in college. He was able to help, his team get there to the end. His, last couple of seasons, he ran into the University of Georgia and he ran into the University of Michigan. So not too bad, putting a team on your back and trying to be there at the end. And then you have the wait and see game with him too. If he comes out in training camp, he has a good grasp of the offense, and they feel comfortable with him being number 2. Marcus Mariota does not have a history of playing in the entirety of a season. Would he be ready to come in this year and you get a look at him? Or if this year the Falcons don't do well and the Falcons are in a position to get, a C.J. Stroud, they think it's a better quarterback class, then with them being selected in the third round, I don't think there's anything wrong with you taking a quarterback next year if you think that's the guy that can win you a Super Bowl. So I think Desmond Ritter is like everybody else. He's got a shot to be a starter. He's got a shot to prove that he can play, and he's got a shot to see if he can help the Falcons win. And if he can do that, take advantage of his snaps and opportunities, who knows? Maybe he could be the guy who's a late round pick like Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott, who have been able to prove that you don't have to be a first or second rounder to be a starting QB.
home team, when you think about a guy like Terry Fontenot, it's not like he had the most money to deal with going into free agency, as well as when you talk about the draft. Just talk about it overall, because I group the draft with the offseason additions. I mean, or when you talk about guys, like Lorenzo Carter to add to a linebacker / defensive end. You talk about Auden Tate at the receiver position. Just talk about how he was able to maneuver, because when you don't have a lot of money to deal with, that's why you're gonna see a bunch of guys signing a bunch of one-year deals.
Right, exactly. They're still in the final stage of the bumpy road with Matt Ryan's contract, that all of the restructuring and kicking the can down the road finally ends this year. So you weren't able to, do everything that you wanted to, but you mentioned names like Lorenzo, Carter. They've been able to, find sneakily to put in some veterans in the secondary, and they're guys that are going to be on one-year deals. But I think ultimately they needed to find a mix of veterans that could play and wanted to play, and also be able to hit on the draft and be able to find 3 starters. I think they found their starting wide receiver in Drake London. I think Arnold Ibike, I'll just call him AK, is what his friends call him. And then you got Trevor Anderson, your linebacker. Those 3 guys could be starting. And so you might have gotten yourself 3 starters mixed in with guys on one-year deals. Damian Williams is a running back as well. So you might be able to put something together to keep the car on the road until reinforcements arrive with the help in more than $130 million in cap space starting next year.
Yeah, that'll be awfully nice. Home team Brandon Leak joining us. They go running back late in the 5th round, and today Mike Davis gets the see you later. Are we trying to get to the here's what Arthur Smith wants at running back? How do they feel about that position? I know there was opportunity to get running back potentially earlier in the draft. What do you kind of make of the subsequent moves we've seen now post-draft?
Well, I think Arthur Smith made it clear over the weekend that no one in the running back room was safe, that it was certainly going to be one of the positions that was completely up for grabs as far as reps, as far as the ability to find out who your starter was. Mike Davis Hayden is such a great guy, a local kid from Atlanta, did a lot of work in the community, but he's just kind of part of in the realm with everybody here now, really on a one-year deal, and they didn't feel like they were getting the productivity. I don't think they want to have Cordero Patterson be the lead back like he was last year. I think they want to be able to use him as a weapon, and he's better suited to play wide receiver. So even if you're throwing him screens and getting some stuff behind the line of scrimmage as a wide receiver, you can do that without him taking the punishment of a running back. But it was clear that they want a little bit more production. They want to run the ball. They want to be able to get into the red zone, and then they want to be able to score once they get into the red zone. And unfortunately, they didn't think that Mike Davis was a part of its long-term solution.
Al Pitt 6'6", Auden Tate 6'5", Drake London 6'4". I mean, these guys are essentially saying, look, we want a certain type of receiver if they're going to be out there. I mean, Cordell Patterson, he's 6'2", 6'3". It's not like he's small. What do you think when you look at the receiver position? Home team, a team like Atlanta, they're saying, look, we want to have big guys on the perimeter. How do you think it's going to benefit a guy like Marcus Mariota, especially when you got a guy like Drake London, who every time you watch him, he ain't really separating, but seem to be winning them 50-50 balls?
I think it's beneficial to whoever the quarterback is. The guys that might be vying for a position this year, a rookie quarterback that could be coming in this year, or a quarterback that could be coming in next year. That you have guys that have huge catch radiuses and guys that fight for the ball. That was one of the reasons why Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot were so high. They could have taken Garrett Wilson. They could have taken Jamison Williams. But the bottom line is, I think what we're witnessing is the metamorphosis of the Falcons over this draft in the last year as well. Going from Julio Jones and Roddy White and Harry Douglas and these guys that can really get down the field and supposed to be really explosive, to maybe a more smash mouth. We're going to fight for every single yard. We can throw you underneath, and we might not be throwing 12 bombs a month, but we certainly can score when we get in the red zone because these guys are big, and no matter who the quarterback is, you can have an opportunity to throw the ball to them and be successful with whatever you put either underneath or down the field.
Home team, your estimation. Obviously, this is just 2 drafts, and this is a team that was in a tough spot financially and got some rebuilding to do. But how important is the evaluation, I guess, post draft with how these guys develop and turn out, given that last year, really, Kyle Pitts was one of the few draft picks that actually played a lot and contributed in a big way. How do you kind of watch Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith with how they drafted and how these guys continue to develop as Atlanta Falcons?
Well, they were, dead last in running the ball, and so running the ball a little bit better will be something. But I think it's going to take a couple of years. I just think we're kind of in a holding pattern and need to be in a wait and see. You got some guys. I mean, I think Trevor Anderson, a lot of people were thinking, oh, my God, Nakobe Dean was still on the board. How could you not pick him? But this guy, and not just, with local reporters, if you look at some of the things that national writers have said, that this guy might be one of the biggest steals in the draft. I mean, you got a linebacker in a 3-4 scheme that's 6'4", 235, who was the fastest linebacker at the combine and holds the third fastest time in combine history. I mean, you might have gotten yourself a monster at the linebacker position. You throw in the fact that you got Arnold Ibakaty, and he might be a monster coming off the end. If you got two guys, plus Drake London, by the way, is now the odds-on favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year out in some of the gambling sites, if that's your kind of pleasure. They have the opportunity, if these guys hit, to maybe turn the corner really quickly. And the good thing about it is everybody will be able to see, because with the wide receivers they didn't take, the players from the University of Georgia they didn't take, the defensive ends they didn't take, and the guys they chose to take, it's going to be right there for everyone to see whether the Falcons picked the right players and did the right thing.
And home team, I know it's always going to come back to the defense. I mean, you're getting three guys, in the draft. You talk about Lorenzo Carter. No, everybody was talking about, Sauce Gardner, and you talk about Derek Stingley Jr. that went 3 and 4. How much is Casey Hayward, Tease Tabor, two guys coming over, veteran guys are going to be able to hopefully shore up that second cornerback position and maybe even that slot cornerback position?
I think that's huge. I think, Hayward back there with A.J. Terrell would be fantastic. And, again, you look at all the players, Lorenzo Carter, Casey Hayward, you look at the guys coming in on short deals, they're going to have to play their best. They're going to have to ball out so that they can get a big contract the next time down the road, either with the Falcons next year or with someone else in the NFL. So you might be able to get some really good production out of some guys who have one more chance to show they can get a major contract. So it's a very interesting time, I think, for the Atlanta Falcons. I think if anything else, you should be intrigued if you're a Falcon fan. I don't think anybody could say that they blew or lost the draft. Sometimes the draft reveals itself 3 or 4 years down the line, but I just think they got a lot of value. I think they got a lot of good players, and we're just going to have to see if they can stay healthy and be all of the things that Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith think that it can be.
Home team Brandon Leak, host of Home Team in Hamilton there in the ATL. Home team, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
All right. You guys take it easy.
Will do. Home team Brandon Leak joining us there, 680 The Fan in Atlanta, as he's co-hosting Home Team in Hamilton and talking about that Falcons draft class, Ben, where he said got some good players. Now it's time for Arthur Smith and company to develop those players and get them comfortable in that system. We'll come back. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here. 3 and Out. Kevin and Ben here on this Monday. We'll get to more draft coming up in just a little bit. But the Braves lose 2 out of 3 to the Rangers. Ben, the Rangers in last place saw for whatever it's worth, this early on. The Braves have had the easiest schedule in Major League Baseball for what it's worth. Thus far, they are a few games under 500, but huge couple of days here for the Braves. 4 games in 3 days against the New York Mets in the Big Apple, starting with tonight's ball game and then a doubleheader tomorrow.
The Braves need to get back to, Kevin, just being comfortable. It's not as if the Braves aren't playing good enough baseball to win. It's just, hey, man, look, baseball, the most successful team just failed the least, if you want to look at it that way. I do think that having Ronald Acuna Jr. back definitely brings like that extra jolt of energy, enthusiasm back to the ball club. But you got to win series. I mean, the old Bobby, you just got to win baseball. You got to win series. You got to win in your division. That's the recipe for success in the bigs, Kevin. But look, whether it's been the easiest schedule, I would beg to differ. I mean, but at the end of the day, get back to your winning ways, Kevin. That doubleheader. Let's please get this out of the way. I can't stand to see him.
Yeah, we got to take 3 around the corner. We'll take a deeper dive where the locals go in the draft, what the Jaguars do. We'll look at their draft as well. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you at Pigskin Radio. Also streaming live Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Good to have you back. Hour 2 of 3 and Out on this Monday. Well, hey, a lot of draft picks going. Certainly, as soon as the draft's over, undrafted free agents going everywhere. A lot of local guys in the draft. And after the draft, we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. We'll take a deeper dive, Ben, at the Jags. We know what they did at number 1. We know what they did at the first round. What they do with the rest of that draft, how's it going to work out for Jacksonville? We'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit. But it is 4 o'clock, so we will do one thing. We will take 3 here on 3 and Out. If I can get the blasted music to play, here we go. Take 1, Ben. Which team, well, you got to do this the day after the draft, so straightforward. Which team had the best draft weekend?
I'm going to go with the Eagles, and this is why. The Eagles get Jordan Davis, right? Big-time pick. They get Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round, right? 2 former teammates. They get A.J. Brown in a trade. Like, if you think about it, right? Okay, this Eagles team going to have to compete in the vaunted NFC Beast East if it's going to go back to those Beast days, right? Well, you know that Dallas going to be the team, they're going to be the team to beat because of what they bring back. The Washington Commanders aren't a real football team here. They don't even got a real football name. And then when you think about the fact that, the Giants, while they did get better with guys like Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, I'm going to say, Kevin, it's something we say. I can add a centerpiece in Jordan Davis. I can add the best linebacker in the draft, regardless of how people feel, in Nakobe Dean. And I get A.J. Brown to add to the receiving core that has Devonta Smith, that has Goddard, that has Jalen Reagor, Jalen Hurts. They're going to hurt people. So Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, A.J. Brown. I'm going to say the Eagles had the best draft, but at the end of the year, a lot of teams really, really got better. But you adding a definitely top 10 receiver in a trade, give me them Eagles.
Yeah, it was easy to say that the Eagles had the best draft, or easy to say the Jets rather had the best draft because the Jets had like 4,000 picks.
Yes.
And had 3 in the first round. I'm sorry, if you have 3 first-round picks and your name isn't mentioned with having the best draft, everybody should be fired, right? Every single person. I will say, the Ravens, especially early, Kyle Hamilton slipping. Yes. You get Ojabu in the 2nd round. You got Linderbaum, who's the best center in the draft. the best center in the draft. You go back up to get him. You are Ravensing the draft, as people like to say. You get, who was it? Ray called us on Friday and said, I want the Falcons to get Travis Jones, defensive tackle. Nope, the Ravens got him.
Ravens like, sorry. He looked like a Raven, built like a Raven. He is a Raven.
So you were able to go out and really do a number in this draft and get some guys that I think, Isaiah Likely in the 4th round. Great tight end. I really think I'm going to say the Ravens, just to be different for you.
Isaiah Likely is a quality pick to go. Him and freaking Mark Andrews was the first team All-Pro in 2021. I just think that Kyle Hamilton is built to be a Raven. Like, he's big, he's fast, he loves to hit, he's rangy. Yep, sounds like a Raven to me. And Kevin, you talk about Linderbaum. You getting the best center in the draft for a quality pick. Yep. So at the end of the day, the Ravens are consistently winners because they go out there and draft well, and they get great guys added free agency. Watch out for them Ravens, and not possibly. I know the AFC West is going to be serious, but that AFC North is going to be serious as well. Shout out to them Ravens.
All right, Ben, take 2. Which team had the worst draft weekend? And nobody will claim this. Oh, we love all the guys we took. We love them.
Yeah, it's New England.
You think so?
Yeah. Listen, it's nothing against Strange, right? It's nothing against offensive tackle Strange they got. You could have got anybody, right? And I think that's the thing about New England. They don't care. New England's picking in the 1st round because they wouldn't nobody get the pick. Kevin, in the break, I'm going to show you when they called this young man. And I just want you to see from Bill Belichick to freaking, Robert Kraft. It's like this. Hey, how you doing, Strange? Congratulations. it was awful. It was awful. It's think about this, Kevin. Look, Kevin, you're a baseball guy. You coming up in the thing. You going to the. You finally made it to the. You finally made it to the big leagues. You get drafted by the Braves. All right. Old Snit. Old Alex. Hello. Yeah. Is this Kevin? Yeah. Kevin, listen, man. I'm about to get on this helicopter, man. But congratulations. Okay. I know. Hello. I'll call you back. It was crazy. It was crazy because this is the thing, right, Kevin? The 1st round is supposed to be, hey, dude, we trying to go out there. We trying to get the best player available. And I'm not. They do their homework. But when it came through, we was like, huh? it was like no fan. People was like, nah, like when Mel Kiper said this, listen, before you guys go crazy, let me just tell you, shout out to the young man. He's the highest drafted player from Chattanooga since they won Terrell Owens in the third round way back in 1996. So that was a big gap in between. But I just think that for me, Kevin, New England, they don't go best available. They don't go best on the board. They trust.
They go with who they like.
Yeah, they go with that. So because no one saw that coming, not even Strange. I mean, when the number pull up on the phone, it's like, this saying New England, man. This is telemarketer. Pick it up. Hello? So I'm going to go with the Patriots only because when they finally, they got Mac Jones last year, they get Strange this year. I would go with the Patriots only because it was just out of left field.
Happiest guy other than Mr. Strange was his agent.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I'd be expecting third round, baby. With the 20. With the cha-ching.
Cha-ching. Pick it up. Hello? Pick it up. They'll send your name in. Pick it up.
I mean, I could go with that again in these with the case of being different. I'll say the Carolina Panthers. You got Ekwonu, which is very good at the top. And I'm not hating on that pick. Great pick. But then you follow that up with Matt Corral. Is that the quarterback that's going to put you over the top?
No.
And again, you're in the situation kind of like Atlanta where you're like, well, you got to have somebody. Well, like, okay, you have Sam Darnold, I guess. I mean, you tried a couple. Was Matt Corral going to get it done? And then you say, okay, we did get a tackle to protect our quarterback. You then go linebacker, defensive end, O-lineman, Cade Mays out of Tennessee, former Georgia player in the 6th round, and Kalen Barnes, a cornerback. So you didn't really help your quarterback out too terribly much, whoever it's going to be. Some defensive guys, some offensive line depth in the back end of the draft. And, okay, you did get a tackle. I'll give you that. Linebacker, even in the 4th round or so, draft was pretty deep with running backs. I know you say, well, we got McCaffrey. You do.
He stays hurt.
Well, that was going to be my point. Yeah. He what do you say? He can't help the club in the tub.
Oh, no. Before he got that cheese, he's 1,000-yard rusher. 1,000-yard receiver. He get that cheese, and it happens. It happens, right? I mean,
but you gave him. I'm not even saying you need a starter at running back, but at least a secondary option.
Yes, you need a number 2
in a draft that was full of receivers. And I'm not saying again, you did not have a 2nd round pick. I get it. It was a long time in between picks, but this draft was deep at wide receiver, a 2 guy, a 3 guy.
Yes,
you didn't address that. So I'm going to go with Carolina Panthers as having the worst draft.
Yeah, very, very lackluster. And like I said, I mean, I just think that when you talk about the Carolina team, that you want to make a splash. If I got my quarterback, yeah, you get your tackle because I don't have a quarterback yet. I don't know who my quarterback gonna be. Baker Mayfield still has a house in Cleveland. I don't know why, because he ain't gonna be playing now. So we'll see what happens with maybe they still gonna make a move for a guy like Baker Mayfield. We'll see, Kevin. But yeah, Carolina Panthers draft was very.
But
very
if you wanted to make a move for Baker Mayfield, why are you getting Matt Corral?
I think what's gonna happen is this. Right? No, Cam Newton had the whole "we're coming home" last year when he came back to Carolina. It was much to do. It was a celebration more than it was anything else. He gets out on the field and the truth comes out. Then it was PJ Walker. Then it was Sam Darnold. Right? Cam Newton is no longer there. PJ Walker is a solid backup. I think where they're doing it, they let Sam Darnold go through training camp. Obviously, you got Matt Corral after training camp. Or before training camp, I think Cleveland's probably going to cut Baker Mayfield, and then you can get him for the cheap. Maybe you bring him into Carolina. Maybe you make him compete. Who knows?
I don't know if I see that working out any better than some of the other guys they've had in there. All right, moving along, Ben. Take 3 is Desmond Ritter the quarterback of the future in Atlanta? And the Falcons took him 3rd round there on Friday night.
I would say yes, and this is why. The thing about a guy like Desmond Ritter is this: he did it the hard way in college. Let's face it, we're not checking for Cincinnati anything that's not the Bengals or the Reds. Let's just call it what it is. You look at how he made his trek through college football, just playing, just in a very, 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 very good conference, right? Very, very decent conference. Then they add Notre Dame to the schedule. Check. Right? They add Georgia to the schedule, almost beat them. They add Alabama to the schedule, as well as the college football playoff. Right? Didn't beat Georgia, but lost to Georgia by a field goal in the Chick-fil-A. in the Peach Bowl. Then you think about a team like Alabama in the college football playoff. 9. He was one of 9 draft picks. So yeah, Kevin, I do think he's a guy of the future. I think what happens is, right, Marcus Mariota, Felipe Franks, any one of those guys, they're replacing Matt Ryan. And I think we're going to see in 2022 just how much Matt Ryan meant to the team, not just offense. You don't believe me? When Dak Prescott got hurt 2 years ago, we saw just how regular that offense was without him. Zeke couldn't get it done. Those guys. So I think what happens is, Kevin, got to give it time at the quarterback position, because the same thing we say, we used to get disappointed with Matty Ice because he can make all the throws. Now we're going to be saying, oh, Matty Ice would have made it. Matty Ice is gone, right? Okay, Freddie Freeman's gone, right? Two icons gone within a matter of what? A month or so of each other. So I think that what it is Kevin, Desmond Ritter, if you give him time, because they're giving him some big body receivers. Kyle Pitts, I could throw to him. I mean, we'll see what happened with Alden Tate. We'll see what happened with Cordell Patterson. We'll see what happened with Drake London. But do I think he's the future? Yes, because if I can get depth and production from him in 2022, I can let go of those. Because no matter what with those quarterbacks next year in 2023, we don't know what they're going to become now. Come on now. They're going to be headliners. This year was not about the quarterback, Kevin. 2023, just get your popcorn. We're going to hear about the quarterbacks all year, no matter what they do. But if you can get him already on court, Kevin, you know what it's about. If I already got him in the building on my squad, getting acclimated to the league, seeing what it's like to go up against a starting defense every year, because he's going to be the help. He's going to be the help quarterback for the defense all year long. I'll take Desmond Ritter, because at the end of the day, he didn't go first round, but when they were talking about the first round quarterback, maybe a fringe guy, he was that fourth guy. It was supposed to be Malik Willis. It was supposed to be Kenny Pickett, who went first round. It was supposed to be Matt Corral, and obviously Desmond Ritter. Didn't go first round, went third round, but I think he can definitely be the guy for the future for the Falcons.
See, I don't know. I could be wrong. I was also the guy that's saying you should have drafted Matt Ryan back in the day.
Yeah.
But when it happened, I was kind of like, Not that it was a bad pick at the time. I was like, just how does he fit in? Is this a guy that you see as a starting quarterback? Or, I mean, if things go bad, are you putting him in there instead of Marcus Mariota, or are you just riding with Marcus Mariota?
It just depends. It just depends.
Well, I mean, okay. I'm just saying, I think if it comes around something what we talked about with Brandon Leak last hour was if one of those quarterbacks, if you're in a position to get one of those quarterbacks next year, are you probably going to take one?
You could, yeah.
Over Desmond. Well,
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So Desmond Ritter, I see Desmond Ritter as being a very nice quarterback that could come in and play a backup role and be a guy that if the starter goes down,
is he a Kirk Cousins type quarterback?
I think he can. I think he's a guy. And again, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I think he's a guy that at the National Football League could give you a 5-6 game window where he'd be pretty good. Is he going to be a 17 game guy? I don't know. There are guys that this, man. There are guys that can come in and for a 5-6 game stretch are pretty good, and then the league kind of watches the tape and says this is what he does, and then it kind of tails off from there. But I mean, I think he's a guy that could carry you in a 5 to 6 week window. I don't know if he's my week 1 to week 17 starter. Dude, that's my opinion.
What you're really saying is too, though. Can Desmond Ritter be the face of the Falcons?
And I'm going to say no.
Because to me, that's the thing about a franchise quarterback is more than just being the starter. Are you when you thought of the Falcons, I thought of Matt Ryan, for a long, and that's taking us away from Julio and Roddy White, and Michael Burner Turner, and the list, and Tony Gonzalez, and the list goes on and on. Matty Ice was the face of the franchise for over a decade. 14 years or something like that. So now you're going from that to, hey man, we got to start over. Yeah. What do we want our quarterback to look like? Because this is what you don't realize. Whoever becomes the face, that's how you have to draft too. I got to get a quarterback that's similar to him, for a backup. So we'll see. Kevin. I just think because of the school league. Listen, Boston kind of like you say, Kevin, because of who you didn't like getting Matty Ice because of who was coming out around him. That draft was loaded when Matty Ice came out. I think the thing about Desmond Ritter is this draft class, as far as quarterbacks weren't headliners, we tried to make them that. Kenny Pickett goes first round. Malik Willis, Matt Corral, those guys, they go in the third and fourth. So I think for me, you go out there and let him see, because we're going to learn a lot about him in the NFC South. That's obviously Tampa and New Orleans right now. And Atlanta trying to fight and scratch and claw for Carolina does not be the, bottom feeder. So we'll see what happens.
If it all goes south, you will be in the top 5 next year.
Oh, yeah. We talking a bunch of trash now on the show. I mean, 2 days removed from the draft. If they in the top 5, Terry Fontenot, you know what to do. Get you one of them boys. Get you. Because, Kevin, it's like we said. You drive by the lot when you can't afford it. When you can pull in the lot, You rubbing your hands together. Kevin, I thought you said you didn't want one. Shut up. That was last year. Came up on some cheese. I'm going to try to get one of these.
There you go. Hey, let's take three. We do it every day at this time. We've got so much more to get to. We'll look at the Jags, what they did in the draft. We'll look at a lot of locals in the draft, several signing post-draft, some undrafted free agent contracts. We'll get you up to date on what happened with those guys throughout the draft weekend. This is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Draft is in the books for 2022. Ben, we talked about the Falcons and what they were able to do. What about Jacksonville? A lot of talk about Trent Baalke, what they could do. Doug Peterson comes in, obviously, as the head coach there. How much say-so did he have in the draft process? They go Travon Walker, who some people say, hey, great pick. Some people say, hey, maybe he's the best athlete in the draft, maybe not the best football player in the draft. Ben, we can debate that. They then trade up to get Devin Lloyd. They address offensive line in the third round, getting Luke Fortner out of Kentucky. They get a linebacker, Chad Muma out of Wyoming, who a lot of people think might be an interesting pick out of the draft, a guy that can play inside. And, you get another guy in this draft. You got two guys that you feel like can play outside out of on the roster. Now you get a guy to handle inside with Foye Oluokun and now Chad Muma. You go Snoop Connor, Ole Miss. You get a running back late in this draft, 5th round. Gregory Jr. is a cornerback out of Washington Baptist, D2 player, and Monteric Brown out of Arkansas. So by and large, BJ has advocated as a Jags fan the KISS method of drafting. Keep it simple. Don't try to find, Nebraska Omaha players and turn them into all pros, right? Georgia, Utah, Kentucky, Wyoming, Ole Miss, Arkansas, one reach maybe out of Washington. And again, that's not saying he's going to be a bad player, but obviously the odds are stick with the big conference guys when you're trying to build your franchise, and more likely than not, those guys can pan out. But overall, you look at the Jags draft, Ben, we've talked ad nauseum about Travon Walker. How do you feel Jags did rest of the draft trying to get their roster back where they feel it needs to be?
I mean, from a perception standpoint, I would give them like a C. From a realistic standpoint, Kevin, I would probably give them like a C- because, like you said, I mean, when you're drafting guys, right? And this goes back to the scouting department. I mean, obviously we're in the media, so I don't know the ins and outs. But it's like you said. I mean, you got a linebacker out of Wyoming. Now, Wyoming was a really, really good team last year. But when I'm trying to get linebackers, I mean, I'm
remember the last guy you hated on out of Wyoming.
I will say I didn't leave the Wyoming boys alone. That Mr. Smidgen under 6'5" been balling ever since. But I think, but it's like you said, Kevin. I mean, sometimes we want to hear guys that we've seen play that we know. Like, I mean, and the Southeast has a plethora of good football players. And just take away the SEC for a second. You still got the ACC, right? You still got the Sun Belt, right? I mean, you got a plethora of great football going on right now. But I think what happens is bigger than the guy you get, it's how do they fit the locker room? How do they fit in what you're trying to do scheme wise? Because they want quality character guys. Because another thing that's not talked about in the National Football League anymore is I'm tired of having my phone ring after hours, man, because you got some nonsense. Because that's what really hurts your team. When a guy is on the injury report and he ain't injured, he breaking news, he's suspended for some odd game. So I think a lot of that goes into it. But Kevin, like I say, I mean, when I see a bunch of Utahs on here and Wyomings, but then it's coupled in with Arkansas, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Georgia. Now, I will say this. I saw a lot of Nakobe Dean last year. He's an incredible linebacker. Devin Lloyd out of Utah. My Florida Gator played Utah first game of the year, and I am so happy. Because when I went, I said, please let Devin Lloyd be going pro. Because this kid can play, like big-time player. But I will say this. Trent Baalke is a guy who they obviously trust in their franchise.
Sure.
This entire group will be judged on Travon Walker. So even if those guys around him do well and he does it, they're going to – because, Kevin, you're the number one overall pick. I don't know if you can live up to those expectations. It's really, really hard to do. But Travon Walker, he played on the best team in college football in 2021. Played on the national championship team in 2021. He might have been the most – I don't even know if he was – athletically, he's the most freakishly gifted athlete. He wasn't the best player on that defense. That's Nakobe Dean. He wasn't the most impactful on the defense. That's Jordan Davis. Quay Walker, and Devontae White and those guys, they all went first round. He went number one overall. What scares me about Travon Walker is this. It's not that I don't think he can play. Kevin, when Jadeveon Clowney went number one overall, nobody batted an eye. They go, oh, yeah, that he was the best player in college football his sophomore year, but because of NCAA restrictions, he got to be in college for 3 years, right? When Julius Peppers came out, and he was the number 2 overall pick, nobody batted an eye, right? Because these guys were not just great football players; they were first-team All-Americans. They was all conference. I mean, Trevor, and I'm not saying that these awards aren't kind of kind of biased, but I've never seen a number 1 overall pick that was never anything other than a national champion. Wasn't on the award list, wasn't an all-conference player. And the thing that people say, well, he had 6 sacks this year. The number 1 overall pick had 6 sacks? Yeah. And what the world
in 15 games, by the way. So it's getting closer to an NFL
and 9.5 in 3 years. People that get enamored about what he did athletically wise at the combine, shouldn't that translate to who he is? Like, once again, I am happy for the young man. He could probably go out and be incredible. But 6'5", 275, 4.51, 9.5 career sacks. And guess what? He got singled every play. He's not getting doubled because you got double Jordan Davis every single time he's out there. He got Nicole Dean behind him. He got signed behind him. He got Quay Walker. You know, so I think what's scary about taking a Travon Walker is the potential, and the potential got to be. It ain't what you saw on tape, because Kevin, you've watched enough football to know. If I say, oh man, D Slay, out of Brunswick High, you'll go, oh, dude, that. I remember him in high school. Like, I saw the potential no matter what school he went to. I just think what scares me is for Travon Walker is he has to be a headliner now.
Sure,
he was a feature piece on that Georgia defense, but I think
what will help him is you have on the other side,
Josh Allen,
other Josh Allen. I thought they maneuvered Devin Lloyd, great linebacker. You put him with Foye Oluokun, and then Chad Muma. I think Ben is going to be a situational linebacker for them. Like, they want him to come in and do one thing really well. I think they want him to. Your job is to go towards the line of scrimmage, young man. That is what you are doing. So Fortner, we'll see. Obviously, they need some offensive line help. Is that a guy that can help solidify the interior? You did work with your tackles here in the offseason. I think you did some work with your guards. You addressed the middle portion of your line in the draft. Snoop Connor, again, I thought running back would be like an insurance play for the Jags, because you have James Robinson, and of course you're hoping Travis Etienne is what you drafted him to be coming off injury. And Snoop Connor out of Ole Miss, out of that system, they didn't really necessarily have to feature him. You had a running quarterback with him, and most people were concerned with the spread. He's a good running back. Don't get me wrong, but I see him as more of like an insurance piece. And obviously, when you're talking 6th, 7th round guys on defense in the cornerback spot, I think they were drafted to be backups because you feel pretty good about what you have there on the back end of the defense. So all in all, I think they did okay. They certainly addressed needs. I will say that. They certainly addressed needs and try to get themselves some depth. I don't know if I'm necessarily blown away by any pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think your C grade is good, which means they did okay. If people think, oh, you gave them a C, that means you think they suck. No, C means average. It means they did an okay job. They didn't do a bad job. They just didn't blow me away with what they did. So I think that's actually a good kind of thought for Jacksonville in this draft. They did okay. Was it anything exceptional? Maybe not. I think Devin Lloyd's going to end up being a really good player, but it wasn't, the most spectacular draft, but it wasn't one where you're going, I've seen some Jags drafts now where you get a lot of guys you're going, why, how many diamonds in the rough are they trying to get? I remember those days when you had Shaq Harris as a GM, and you'd go through the draft and it was, you didn't draft a P5 player in the draft.
Yeah.
And you're going, I get it. Every draft guy. But Ben, you know this. Every draft guy in the room is like, I'm the smartest guy out there. Any guy that does talent evaluation, and I'm not saying it's a bad trait, but everybody that does talent evaluation wants to be the guy that said, I saw it and nobody else did. I'm the one that found, Matt Ryan. Oh, and he's first round pick, so maybe you can't do, but I'm the one that found Tom Brady. He's 6th round pick. I knew he was going to be good. Did you that? Okay. But there was time when Jacksonville was drafting guys, you're going, look, I get you can find diamonds in the rough. But let's stay out of the rough.
Exactly.
Why can't we go hunting the diamond?
And the whole diamond in the rough thing is this, man. It's almost like this. Look, they weren't looking for a diamond in the rough, people. That's a phrase. I'm looking for something, and I go, what is that? And then I pick it up. I said, Kevin, come over here. And then we watch it off, and I go, is that what we like? Yeah. It's not like no, people. No,
you kind of got lucky with it.
You don't find diamonds in the rough. That's not where you find a diamond. But I will say, once again, the 2022 draft will be paired with the 2021. You're gonna see, because this team doesn't have double-digit wins in back-to-back seasons combined. So you're picking number one in the draft in back-to-back years because the team has gotten much younger. Your starting quarterback is 22 years old. Your starting running back is going to be 21, 22 years old. Your tackle, Jawan Taylor's what, 24, 25? So this team is riddled with a bunch of 25-year-olds.
I look at it this way. With what you did in free agency, you helped out Trevor Lawrence at the wide receiver position.
Absolutely.
In the draft,
and the tight end position, yes.
Yeah, in the draft, you gave him maybe a backup center, maybe Fortner develops into a starting center and a third running back. That's what you got him in the draft. When you're talking about young playmakers, that's what you got your franchise quarterback coming off a 3-win year in a draft. We went out and spent money on guys that, and I'll leave it up to other people to say, you spent money on guys who have never been number one receivers before, paid them big money to go out and catch balls from Trevor Lawrence. And in the draft, you gave him a third string running back. And I'm not saying Snoop Conner is a third. I'm saying as currently constituted, you have James Robinson, you have Travis Etienne. I don't see him beating either one of those guys out yet. So he's a third string situational running back, and you got a center. That's it. Everybody else was to help out the defense. We'll see. That defense had better take a big step forward in 2022, Ben. Otherwise, you are putting an awful lot on Trevor Lawrence and those guys you brought in free agency, paid him a lot of money. Some would say overpaid, but guys you brought in free agency, and you, again, a deep wide receiver draft. You didn't take a young wide receiver that you could develop. And I get why you would be gun-shy doing that, but you did not do that. You did not go tackle in a draft that had a lot of them. You did not address a guy you could develop into a number one, anything like that. You did get a center. And running back, you got him a third option. You didn't go get a feature back. You didn't go get this is a guy, a James Cook, that could catch it out of the backfield. You got a third option at running back. I don't know how many snaps he'll say, and that's it. That's all you did in the draft as far as helping out your franchise quarterback. I'm saying, I don't know if you could do that again next year you're Jacksonville. Otherwise, Trevor Lawrence is going to say, did I change my name to Aaron?
Oh, I'm about to say, yeah.
So, I mean, again, you better hope the free agent guys work out, Evan Ingram and guys like that. But again, I know Ingram's on a short deal.
1 year deal.
So, I mean, some of this stuff is like, you better
he
hope
balls out to where he gets a multi-year deal. You talk about Christian Kirk. You talk about Zay Jones. You talk about the holdovers in Marvin Jones. You talk about the holdovers in Laviska Shenault, who's still on a rookie deal. I just think that Kevin, look, they're going for it. Like, if I'm giving my second-year quarterback a bunch of veterans in the offseason, that means on the offensive side, that means, hey, man, we believe in you. We're giving you a tight end, first-round pick. Christian Kirk was a second-round pick. Zay Jones was a complimentary piece. Laviska Shenault was a second-round pick. Marvin Jones, he came over from Detroit as their premier receiver, their number one receiver before they let him go. So they're giving him a lot of, and they're hoping that, like you say, Travis Etienne with James Robinson. I mean, so I do think they're going for an offense. Does that lead to more wins? I don't know. But Kevin, the perception battle on any team is this: can you score points? They prove they can. If they can prove they can score points, that means they can be in all these games. Don't mean they're gonna win it, because you still, outside of Josh Allen, you got a lot of unproven guys that are gonna have to go out there and get it.
You're gonna need some of these guys on defense, as you said. Travon Walker, Devin Lloyd, really have to come in and make plays relatively early. We got more to come. A lot of local flavor in the draft. We'll tell you about some of that when we come back. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Love to hear from you at Pigskin Radio on Twitter. We're streaming live ESPNCoastal.com and live video streaming Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You leave your comments there. Love to have you here on 3 and Out. Great to have you back on this Monday. A lot of local flavor been in the NFL draft this past weekend as the draft takes place. Several guys drafted there into the draft. Kevin Harris out of Bradwell Institute and South Carolina goes in the 6th round to the New England Patriots, who Ben said had the worst draft in the National Football League back in take 3. But Kevin Harris, big bruising running back, got a lot of carries there at South Carolina. Going to move on and play for Bill Belichick. Going to play for the GOAT. Yeah, we got so many goats. We're going to open a petting zoo, but going to play for the GOAT there in New England. Myjai Sanders, who we've talked to on this program.
Super duper happy for that young man.
He comes out of Camden County, goes to Cincinnati.
Another Cincinnati boy.
And he went in the 3rd round to the Arizona Cardinals. And we had a bunch of undrafted, actually in the 7th round, Tariq Carpenter out of Long County and Georgia Tech goes 7th round to the Green Bay Packers. So there were some of the guys that we had drafted. A lot of undrafted free agents out there. Calvin Turner out of New Hampstead via Hawaii accepted workouts, invitations to the Ravens and 49ers. So, Ben, obviously that's a come to camp and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Demetrius Robertson, former 5-star wide receiver, signed a deal with the Seahawks. Of course, he is Savannah Christian to Cal, then to Georgia, then to Auburn.
Yeah.
Now signed a undrafted free agent deal with the Seattle Seahawks. Shabari Davis, great story. There with him, Ben Groves to junior college, where he played high school in Garden City, went to junior college at Garden City Community College, then transfers to Southeast Missouri State and gets an undrafted free agent contract, obviously, after a couple more years with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So congratulations to that young man. A great story following his trek. Quandre Mosley out of Glenn Academy via Kentucky goes to the Cowboys, and Zacoby McClain out of Auburn via Valdosta goes to the Ravens as well. So fast and furious, Ben, and that's one of those things we've heard about, more and more as the draft gets, more and more coverage. People will say, well, why don't you want to go in the 7th round? Well, if I'm an undrafted free agent, I can go where I want. I can pick my franchise to try to catch on. And we got someone saying, shout out to Georgia Southern's Darrell Baker Jr., undrafted free agent deal with the Arizona Cardinals. Congratulations to that young man. But Ben, speak to that freedom. Obviously, you were a drafted player, but free agent-wise, you were able to move around. What about these guys that go 6th, 7th round versus, there's the prestige of being drafted.
Yes.
Obviously. But if you're that late in the draft, is there some thought of, hey, if I'm undrafted, I can actually pick the situation I think might be best for me to give it a shot?
Yeah, I do think having some freedom is always a good thing. Look, the goal is always to get drafted, as you mentioned, Kevin. But if I'm a fringe player, if I'm gonna be a late 7th round pick compared to being a guy that, because I will say this, when people ain't watching, some of these undrafted free agents are getting some nice signing bonuses because some of these guys are getting rewarded for the type of players they were. Some of these organizations are very, 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 very surprised that some of these guys are going undrafted. But look, shout out to all of these guys though. I'm just saying, Myjai Sanders, a guy that we seen Kevin 4 years ago at his sign today, goes off to Cincinnati. You talk about Kevin Harris, led the SEC in rushing a couple of years ago, 6th round draft pick, going to the Patriots. Demetrius Robertson, as you mentioned, go to Cal, to Georgia, to Auburn, now undrafted free agent going to Seattle. You talk about Shabari Davis. I'm happy for every last one of those guys, Kevin, because this is the thing. The draft means opportunity. That's all it means. Anybody outside of, I want to say, maybe the first 3 rounds, right? So from 4th round to 7th round, you're gonna have to really go out there and compete for a starting job. Well, not even for a starting job, but
job period.
Yeah, for a job period. Because I think what we get the thing about the draft that we don't do is we don't do a follow-up. So you got 250-some guys drafted, a bunch of free agents, opening day. How many guys are on opening day rosters? And not even necessarily the 40-something, the 46 that dress. Or did you make the 53? Did you make the practice squad? You're going to be surprised because people will go, wait a minute, you telling me they'll give somebody a signing bonus to let them go? Yeah, they saying congratulations. This is what,
They do it all the time. Mike Davis was on a 2-year deal, played one of them, and the Falcons said, see you later.
Exactly. So I will say that every last one of these guys have a unique opportunity. Kevin, a lot of these guys, we talking about the Kevin Harris's, these are guys you not just watch at South Carolina, guys you covered in high school. So you really covered from high school to college to pro. And I think that we talk about the 9-1-2 and just how many guys come from this area. I mean, it's unique. You talking about Tariq Carpenter? You talking from Long County, goes to Green Bay. You know, coming from Georgia Tech. So I just know how prestigious it is, because just know this: for every guy that hears his name call or somebody call his phone, it's a bunch of guys that don't. The draft came and went, undrafted, drafted or not. They're saying, "Hey, man," they're talking to USFL coaches, XFL coaches, Canadian Football League coaches. So I just think that when you Arena League coaches, because having more variety, the NFL is the creme de la creme. I'm not taking that away, but it's a very, very small window of opportunity that comes with. So people go, I thought he was going to get you. No, to go at undrafted free agent. Sometimes I want to see how it looks. I want to get in the camp. I want to go to these facilities. I want to see these colors. I want to shake hands with these owners and these GMs and these presidents and these head coaches, assistant coaches. Because, Kevin, sometimes you got to see it. Like, the thing about sports is this: you can lie to a bunch of people. You take your behind out there and see it, and you come back, and your wife or your girlfriend or your mom and dad go, how was it? You going, look at me. I ain't going to make it. Why? and that's just being honest, because I will say this. I played with a lot of guys that didn't make it in the league, but they said, Troop, I can appreciate walking away if I've had a chance to experience it. Because certain guys, man, like I said, man, it's a very, very hard. It's like trying to get caught up in the majors in baseball. You talking about rare, 30 times 25, 26. What is that? When you got, the Savannah Bananas and the Jumbo Shrimp and the Green Jackets and all these. So I will say this, fellas, if you don't make it on the team, but you only get to go to camp, congratulations to you regardless, because there are a bunch of players who won't even get a chance to say they got a chance to do that.
Yeah, and again, good luck to those guys.
Absolutely,
again,
absolutely.
If you got the undrafted free agent status, you're getting a chance to go out there and show what you can do and see if you can stick there through the process. So congratulations to those guys. And again, good to see Southeast Georgia represented there on draft weekend. We've got more to come here. It's 3 and Out. Hit us up with your thoughts. Falcons fans, your thoughts on the draft. How do you think Terry Fontenot and company did maneuver through this thing? 912-342-7184. More to come here on this Monday afternoon. Ben, we've talked a lot of draft on the show. I wanted to get your thoughts about Malik Willis going to your Tennessee Titans because we talked about, guys sliding to Kobe Dean. Malik Willis was regarded by, I don't know how many, but at least a fair amount of people as the number one quarterback on the board. He goes in the third round. How surprising was that? And how do you think he fits the bill there in Tennessee? I would assume Ryan Tannehill's days might be coming to a close. Maybe not this year, but soon in Tennessee if you go quarterback there. And a guy that I think if you're Tennessee, you're probably putting the same memo out that the Falcons were. Hey, we think we got a first-round guy in the third round. Well, you still took him in the third round. What's kind of your thoughts there?
I mean, I like the pick. I think it's going to be a good fit. I think sometimes, Kevin, is the power of the hype train known as all these sports networks. All we saw was Malik Willis, right? Sometimes it's not so much where you got picked, but where you landed. He's in Tennessee. And let's just go ahead and call it what it is. Tennessee, right, they tolerate Ryan Tannehill. They do not celebrate him. What does Malik Willis have at his disposal? He has a good defense. Check. He's in a city like Nashville to where, Kevin, while they're in the National Football League, it's not a big market city. So he can just go and develop. It's not like New York or LA to everything you do is so scrutinized. No, it's fine. I was up there, even though the city is much different now. He has arguably the best running back in football to hand the ball off. He has one of the best offensive lines. He gets a first-round pick of Treylon Burks out of Arkansas that they can develop together. He's in the AFC South that they are miles away the best team in the AFC South. Even with Matty Ice going to the Colts, and even with I don't even know who in the hell Houston got. I mean, I think I know they got Damian Pierce and Derek Stingley Jr., but that's the cornerback and the running back. They got to have a quarterback. And then you talk about Jacksonville. So I believe Malik Willis landed in a good spot because Ryan Tannehill needs to know that the clock is ticking for him. He needs to know that, hey man, we tired of saying you all right. We tired of saying we can't. Because think about this, Kevin. This is what really sealed it for Ryan Tannehill. Playoffs, best record in the AFC. You get Derrick Henry back. You know he's not going to be at 100%. The first play after the thing, throw a pick. First play after kickoff. So Malik Willis, nice spot, good city. Go out there and compete. Might have a chance to start this year.
We'll talk more draft coming up in the final hour of the program. Also leading you up to Braves and Mets. Big 3 days here for Atlanta. 4 games in 3 days with the Mets. Mets already 6 up on Atlanta. So a big one coming up tonight to get that series started. We'll talk about that in the final hour as well. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Final hour of the show here on this Mondays. We count you down towards Braves and Mets starting a big series here tonight and a doubleheader tomorrow and a day game on Wednesday. So 4 games in 3 days. Got to figure out a way to get some dubs here if you're the Braves. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But coming off the draft, Ben, a big weekend there as the Falcons and Jags. We've seen everything from A through F for the Falcons. You know, the same you'll see for Jacksonville and every other team out there. They couldn't draft anybody right. At the end of the day, give me your grade as we'll look at the overall of the draft in a minute. But give me your grade for Atlanta. How did they do? Drake London, you could debate, but they went DN linebacker. I got a quarterback, got multiple linebackers, and then the last couple of picks in the draft, got running back and some offensive pieces. A couple of guys out of Georgia, Justin Schaefer and John Fitzpatrick, to help them out. All in all, how do you think the Falcons did? What they need, what they needed versus what they ended up with?
I think I give them a B because, like I said, you got with so many holes to fill, Kevin. You saying to yourself, okay, I got to get better, I got to get younger, I got to get cheaper, I got to get more depth all at once. Okay, you start with a guy, you know, like Drake London. Drake London was going to get drafted in the first round no matter what because five receivers went right behind him. He gives you height. It was never about his playing ability. It was about his health. I mean, with being hurt most of the year, he still had almost 90 catches and almost 1,000 yards with double-digit touchdowns. So you got 6'5", you got a Texas, Florida. Then you talk about Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. I know he's good because of where he played. If you're talking about his second-round pick coming out of Montana State, you know the guy that did their homework on him, and for what I've seen, he's a workout warrior. You talk about Desmond Ritter. Now you got your quarterback. You got a guy that had a first-round grade that burst onto the scene the last couple of years, Kevin, played in the college football playoff, played Georgia in the Peach Bowl a year before, and was able to go out there and play extremely well. So I think you added depth with a guy behind Marcus Mariota. I mean, then you start talking about the fact that you get the D'Angelo Malone, linebacker from Western Kentucky. Look, you want to be able to have the linebacker position is extremely important, but they have to be versatile. It should be LB/OLB. They got to be able to be versatile, rush the passer, stop the run, steal the edge. And I think you added that with that. Now, we just seen today Mike Davis got released by the team, starting running back. You talking about, Tyler Algier, running back out of BYU. It's not sexy. I get it. But quality depth, right? Quality depth. Devonta Freeman was a late round pick when he got drafted to the Falcons. You saw what he was able to become before he left. Then you start talking about 2 Georgia boys. You talk about Justin Schaefer. You talk about John Fitzpatrick, Justin Schaefer. If you play offensive line of Georgia, you are interchangeable. I can play guard. I can potentially play center. I can bump over to the tackle if need be. And obviously, John Fitzpatrick adds some depth to a guy like Kyle Pitts, for which we know we can do catching the ball. So I give it a B, Kevin, because at the end of the day, let's call it what it is. It's the Falcons. It wouldn't matter what the Falcons got. People going to say, oh, my God.
No, I understand that, yeah.
But I will say, think about it, Kevin. They needed a quarterback. You got a quarterback that's supposed to have a first-round grade. You just got him in the 3rd round. That's depth. You say, what do they do with those two second rounds, 2 third rounds? You added a quarterback, and you added some linebackers. So what they did in free agency, they went with offense. Tate, you talk about Cordell Patterson, was able to bring him back. You added some depth there. When you talk about, they say, okay, what needs to be developed? The defense. All right? So in free agency, you got Casey Hayward, you got Tease Tabor, you got Lorenzo Carter. What you give them? You give them other linebackers. Deion Jones, we've been saying this. Will the real Deion Jones please stand up? I don't know what's wrong with Debo. He hasn't been the same player since he signed this deal. Grady Jarrett, while good, he's not the biggest D tackle. So they're going to make their plays with Lorenzo Carter. He can show these young linebackers, hey, man, I'm here on a 1-year deal. So I'm bringing you in to be veteran leadership, groom these young guys, but also lead the way. I think for what the Falcons had, no money in free agency, a bunch of 1-year deals to guys like I think I give it a solid B. And obviously we got to wait to see how they end up. But
I think the one that hurts everybody. I say hurts everybody. The one that got everybody fired up was Drake London because people looked at all the wide receivers that went and they said, you started to run.
Yep.
You being the Falcons, and you had the choice of any wide receiver on the board, and you took Drake London, obviously whom logic would tell you that was their highest graded wide receiver on the board, right? That was their highest graded. A lot of people saying, why would you take a guy that's catch radius 50-50 ball guy over a guy that can blaze and run routes and get open? I think that's how they're going to, and again, everybody's judged on their 1st round pick. I think that's how people are going to look at this one and say, Drake London hopefully you work out, and probably if you're a Falcons fan, you really want to look at that second pick, Ibikite out of Penn State, and you really hope that guy can play.
Oh yeah, another player that was a late first, early second round grade on him.
Absolutely. Go to over to Jacksonville. They had a number of picks. Now they used their picks to move around a little bit. They bumped up, got Devin Lloyd back in the first round. What do you give them top to bottom grade on how they did? Obviously, a team that won 3 games. Their stated goals. Trent Baalke, we are not drafting number 1 again while I'm here. Doug Peters, like we should not be drafting number 1 again. Did they do enough in the draft to help them get away from that?
No, I would say no. And it starts at the top. Look, I like Travon Walker. Travon Walker probably has the biggest upside in the draft. Travon Walker is probably the most freakishly gifted athlete in the draft. Travon Walker is the first number 1 overall pick that did not make an all-conference team, did not make an all-American team. When you go and check out his stats, it says this: freshman all-ACC, national champion. And he played on a defense that was about as good as we've seen ever, Kevin, when you talk about the history books. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Seam, Wyatt and company. So for me, I think, and then now, Devin Lloyd, let me tell you something. This kid out of Utah is lights out good. This kid's good. How do I know? They drafted back up into the first to get him. They wanted to be able to get him. Now, Luke Fortner, from Kentucky, good pick. Really, really good pick. On an offensive line, Kevin, that we were saying, look, Cam Robinson, you re-signed him, to a 1 year deal. They're trying to work out a long-term deal.
They did get a long-term
deal. Then you talk about a guy, you'll see what you got at Juwan. Juwan Taylor coming out of Florida because he was kind of in and out of the lineup. But you got a guy that's versatile. Now, Ted Muma out of Wyoming. I stay away from messing with the Wyoming dudes because last time I talked about a Wyoming guy, you see what he's doing. But then this is what you talk. Snoop Connor out of Ole Miss. I think you make a good point, Kevin. Is Snoop kind of good because it's good, or is he good because of the scheme? Because that scheme that Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin was running at Ole Miss didn't feature him. We'll see how he adds depth. You talk about Gregory Jr., cornerback. You talk about, Monteric Brown, cornerback out of Arkansas. I think they got better, right? I think they got better. But I will say, when they had as much draft capital as they had, Devin Lloyd, you talk about Luke Fortner, Chad Muma, I think they got some good picks. Not as good of a draft as I thought they would have had because you're drafting at the top of every round most. I'm drafting at the top, first pick in the draft, top of the second round, top of the third round.
Well, they gave that up to move back into the first round. But I understand that.
But I give it a C, Kevin, because I think at the end of the day, I think Drake London for Atlanta, he's going to pan out because we've seen we talking you, Kev, you talking about catch radiuses. Well, he's 6'5". That's a pretty big catch radius. And every time we see him catching one-handers and 50-50 balls to go along with Alden Tate, to go along with Fitzpatrick, to go along with Cordell Patterson, to go along with Kyle Pitts. The thing about a guy like Travon Walker is Travon Walker has 9.5 career sacks at Georgia when Jordan Davis was beside him and Nakobe Dean was behind him and Nolan Smith be to the right of him. And, and Quay Walker, guys, he has 6.5 sacks. How many sacks can he get when he has to generate pressure without having a dominant D tackle next to him? You got to look at. I'm known by the company I keep, right? So if my company is getting I don't care what D tackle he's gonna be getting next to. He ain't better than Jordan Davis. So we'll see what happens, Kevin. But I give it a solid C because Travon Walker is considered the number 1, the best player in the 2022 draft. He's the headliner. I don't know if he's box office because the Bosa brothers, they box office. Von Miller was box office, right? Chase Young was box office. Mika Parsons, box office. These are guys that was winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Marshawn Lattimore, box office. Travon Walker was on the best team in 2021, had the biggest upside. We'll see what happens, but I just know that if I got to go from a guy to the guy, that's hard to do, especially when I'm going from college to pro. Now, Georgia ain't no slouches, but the AFC South is going to be a big hill to climb.
Yeah, just looking at the draft again, SEC dominates. The draft, 65 total players drafted from the SEC. I think that's 16 years in a row the SEC has had the most players drafted in the draft. 15 players from UGA drafted, even got the punter drafted. And I think Christian said every draft-eligible player for Georgia got drafted, except for one who is obviously Adam Anderson dealing with very serious legal matters away from the field. But every other player who was draft eligible,
five first-round
15
picks.
of them all got drafted for Georgia, and that is a new record to have 15 guys from one school, eclipsing the old record, which was 14. I think that had been done twice. So you win the national championship, you're going to have guys drafted, but if you put it in perspective, that's nearly, and I know it doesn't work this way, but 15 guys is nearly everybody that started.
Yeah.
Right. Essentially, I know that's not how.
And to show you, and the thing is, 15 guys. That's essentially certain teams. That might be. I mean, certain teams that might be 3-4 years worth of draft picks in
Certainly,
1 year.
yeah.
So I mean, shout out to Georgia, man. Listen, shout out to Georgia and shout out to Cincinnati. Georgia had 15. LSU had 10. Cincinnati had 9.
Yeah,
and Cincinnati,
lot, yeah.
Georgia had the number one player in the draft. LSU had the number one corner in the draft. Cincinnati had the fourth highest player drafted in the draft.
Yeah.
So you had a bunch of things going on.
I will say it's interesting for all and I don't know how many people would say that after what they did to Alabama. I say what they did, the way they played Alabama in the semifinals and the way they played Georgia the year before. People say, oh, it's Cincinnati. What kind of talent do they have? 9 dudes got drafted off that team. Obviously, they had something working there.
Yes.
In Cincinnati. Ben, I know we've talked to you a lot on the show about guys that slide in the draft, and you hate when people say that because you get drafted where you get drafted, right? I mean, it's not just to say you slid. It's not a guarantee to say just because everybody said you were going 10, that's where you were going to go. But you saw quarterbacks who were first-round grades. We talked about Malik Willis, Desmond Ritter. Falcons got Desmond Ritter. Slide into the 3rd round.
Yep.
Nakobe Dean, as a football player, Ben, first-round talent. Most people would say that watch Georgia week in and week out, that obviously with 15 guys drafted, a defense full of studs, he was the best player on that defense. Not the guy that was the best because of everybody around him. He very well could be, but the best player on that defense, Nakobe Dean, first-round grade by a lot of folks. And again, during the draft, all you heard was, hey, there's some concern about the pec injury. There's some concern, which to me doesn't prohibit him from running. It may affect him tackling until it's fully healed, but fully healed, that dude is an absolute animal at linebacker. Were you surprised that even despite, if you buy that legitimately as long injury concerns with Nakobe Dean, that he went from a first-round talent into the 3rd round?
Yeah, it was shocking because I think sometimes we talk about a guy like Nakobe Dean, right? People forget the fact that, look, sometimes I'm gonna play injured. Sometimes I'm gonna play with some nicks. Sometimes I'm gonna have to battle through some injuries to be able to go out there and play. What hurt Nakobe Dean was 2 things. One is he cannot control. That's genetics. He's not the biggest guy you ever seen. But 2, what really hurt him, Kevin, was his pro day. His pro day. I mean, it was a bunch of reports that he was out there trying to run around. He didn't run a fast 40. Then it come to find out that his agent said he was hurt. Well, as his agent, you got to make sure people know. Look, man, if I'm not at my best,
don't do it.
When you talking about my tape, you didn't have better tape. I was just saying,
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, just for that reason, before we go any further, if you are injured, why, for a player of that caliber, does that throw up more red flags? If you just say, I'm not doing a pro day, I'm not doing a combine, I'm going to let my tape speak for himself. Would he have fallen as much if he just said that? Would people say, why don't he want to work out? I mean, it seems like a double-edged sword, but if you are injured, why would you go out there and say, I'm injured, I'm going to put up a time that's not representative? Because as you said, Ben, nobody's going to go, well, we hand-timed you at 4.4 back at Georgia. My coaches did. Well, maybe we're a little quick on the trigger there. Well, I can do 32 reps of 225. Well, can you do it now? Well, no, I'm in it. So they can only go off what they see with their own 2 eyes, Ben. But if you are Nakobe Dean, do you look at his representation and say, look, if he's injured, don't do anything? Or would not doing anything hurt him even more than what apparently it did in this draft?
I don't think it would have hurt him even more, Kevin, because at the end of the day, you're forcing them to just go back to your tape. You're using the leverage that you have. I think leverage is something that most of us will never, ever have in life. It's usually used against us, not for us. I think Nakobe Dean, looking back on it, he's probably saying to himself, look, my tape speaks for itself. I'm jumping off the film at you every time you watch Georgia. Every single week, every single game. I'm the one getting up another guy's face telling him, look, man, you got to be where you're supposed to be. I am surviving out there with giants around me. I am not even 6'5", going up. Jordan Davis, 6'6". Travon Walker, 6'5". Quay Walker, 6. But I'm the best. I'm the buckets out of every linebacker. I know Devin Lloyd went first round. I know Jermaine Johnson, outside linebacker / defensive end, went first round. I'm the buckets award winner. Me. I'm an All-American. I'm a first-team All-SEC, and I'm a national champion. I don't know what else he can do. I think sometimes a guy like Nakobe Dean possesses. It's kind of like Malik Willis. I don't like the fact that I went third round, but I couldn't have landed in a better spot. I am in Philly to where I am probably going to start right behind Jordan Davis, right behind Fletcher Cox with Darius Slay on the outside. He landed on incredible defense. This is the thing. I get it. Everybody wants to go as high as they can to make as much money as they can. You don't retire off your first, you don't retire, or you don't, the generational wealth usually comes with your second contract. That's when your generational wealth really comes. I'm not saying that you ain't getting big time money, but what I'm telling the Kobe Dean is he came to Georgia because they showed him a film of Roquan Smith. And that kid, Roquan Smith, went first round. Roquan Smith don't got the hardware that he had coming out of college as far as like the national championship. Now, Kobe Dean is 5'11", about 220, 225. He is a heat-seeking missile. When he hits you, you go the other way. This kid, he has it all. So I think he used it as motivation. It was shocking, Kevin. And just like the quarterbacks when the Kobe, because what it is we get a front row seat with Georgia every week, whether you root for Georgia or not. They are going to be prime time on either SEC Network, ESPN, the game of the week, what may have you. The Kobe Dean, arguably, I can say this. The best player for Georgia in 2022 was probably the Kobe Dean. Right? That's taking nothing away from Brock Bowers. That's taking nothing away from Jordan Davis. That's taking nothing away from Quay Walker. That's taking nothing away from Nolan Smith or Stetson Bennett. If you take the Kobe Dean off that defense, they are totally different. Totally. So it was shocking, but it happens every year. But, Kevin, we're going to look back 4 years from now, and we're going to be saying to ourselves, look, man.
I mean, if that dude makes, and again, I know you
don't.
If he makes Pro Bowls and all that out of the third round, and you're saying he had a first round, that could end up being the steal of the draft, all because of a torn pec, which I'm not shaking off as nothing, but I would be more concerned if it was a defensive lineman, offensive lineman, where so much of your game is pushing and pulling and getting guys on you and off of you. I don't know if that's necessarily as much of his game as it is go get him and bring him down. And when that heals, how much does that affect his game? I know Christian said, well, there was a labrum deal and all that. I get it. Did that affect his gameplay at all last year? Did that affect what you were seeing on the tape? I don't think so. I think, again, it was shocking to see him slide that far. I'm not saying everybody's guaranteed to be top 10, but you go through round 2, and every single analyst out there is saying this is a bona fide, he was kind of there. No, bona fide top 20 talent in the draft, still sitting there in the third round. And team after team after team just letting it go by. Team drafted linebackers. Falcons took 2 linebackers.
Yeah.
Jags took a linebacker. These are teams that have needs and couldn't make that decision. So I was kind of shocked by it. We'll see. Certainly if you're the Falcons or Jags, you got the Eagles on the schedule. You don't want to be in that post-game press conference going, hey, Nakobe Dean had 12 tackles on you today. Oh, yeah, well.
Falcons drafted 3 linebackers. None of them Nakobe Dean. I just think that sometimes, though, Kevin, that's another reason why you're watching the draft, right? To see guys are going to slip. You start asking yourself, but look, if he did all he did and he had a torn pec and he had these injuries, that makes it even more reason why I want to bring him in. You played that well? Injured? Yeah, I'm not coming out. All right. I'm not, listen, I don't place too much of a stock when it comes to these combines, because at the end of the day, if you can play, you can play. And if you watch 2021 Georgia, Nakobe Dean was everywhere for that defense.
He's going to be on that tape real quick. We've got more to come. Falcons draft. They've made some moves post-draft as well, but where some of these guys fit in terms of making an immediate impact. We'll talk about it next. This is 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back, Ben. Falcons, you said a B on the grade there with what they did in the draft. And now you look at who can make an immediate impact. You're a team that's in a rebuild. You need impactful players, correct? I mean, you need guys that can come in and make a difference. I think we talked about this last year's draft. How many impactful guys did you get? I think one, maybe two. I think you had offensive linemen that kind of played a little bit. Most of the guys were in very subdued roles. How many guys out of this class do you think are going to be impactful for the Falcons at the end of the day in year one? Because there's developmental players even at the NFL level, right? Can they develop into something bigger? How many guys do you think day one step in? Obviously, a few of these guys could be starters, but actually make a tangible impact on the field from the jump.
I could definitely see Justin Schaefer potentially working himself into a nice little role, Kevin, depending on how they want to reshuffle the offensive line. Obviously Drake London, he's going to get an opportunity to be an impact player.
Really, but do you think he will be that?
I think he will. I think he will be impactful because the whole thing, and obviously every last one of these linebackers. I mean, Arnold, you know what I'm saying? I can't even say it. Ebikiti. I'm gonna make sure I get that thing right. Troy Anderson as well as D'Angelo Malone, because I think what they're trying to do is they realize that they're trying to generate pass rush through linebackers more than defensive ends. So I want to have guys that are interchangeable. So I think all three of the linebackers get a chance to be impactful players because they are definitely trying to get younger. Drake London, to me, is going to have a chance to be the biggest impact player because you look at Kyle Pitts last year, right? They were trying to show that, look, Kyle Pitts wasn't supposed to be the best receiver. We just didn't have much else. We just didn't have it. So you think about a guy like Drake London. Kyle Pitts is obviously going to get a lot of attention. Cordell Patterson is going to be on the field at the same time as him. They're going to try to find a way to get Alden Tate and Drake London on there. You're going to find a way, because one thing they're going to do, Kevin, with a guy like Drake London is they're going to throw him the ball, whether he's open or not. I have to see what I have in you. Every time I see you in college, you make a contested catches. Every time I see you in college, you win the 50-50 balls. And, something we talked about earlier, the red zone. The thing about the Falcons is they can move the ball in between the 20s. Get past them 20s in the fringe zone, in the green zone, in the red zone, they get real stagnant. Well, Kevin, think about that.
And Kyle Pitts was no impact in that area last year.
Kyle Pitts has never scored a touchdown that mattered in the regular season in the National Football League. He scored in London, and he scored in the Pro Bowl. Now, you got Kyle Pitts in the red zone. You got Drake London in the red zone. You got Cordell Patterson in the red zone. You got Alden Tate in the red zone. That's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and 6'2". I'm sorry, Marcus Mariota. And you got Marcus Mariota, that's a dual threat quarterback. I think, Kevin, the thing is Drake London can help generate points because either who you going to double? Are you going to try to take away Cordell? You're going to try to take away Kyle? You're going to try to take away Drake? Can't double everybody. When you talk about those linebackers, right? You got three linebackers that can play in the scheme that's going to get groomed by Deion Jones, going to get groomed by Lorenzo Carter. They got a chance. And obviously, we think about Justin Schaefer. The offensive line for the Falcons. It was hard to watch last year sometimes. And I know Tyler Algier, he got a chance because Kevin, 32 teams in the league. Georgia was ranked 32. Atlanta was ranked 32 in rushing. That means Mike Davis, who just got let go, had a whopping 503 yards in 17 games, and he was a starter. So I think that Tyler Algier can definitely be an impact player. Justin Schaefer can be an impact player. Hey, John Fitzpatrick can be an impact player because Hayden Hurst has moved on. He's definitely going to be a backup, to a guy like Kyle Pitts. So lo and behold, Kevin, you can be looking at. I'm looking at this list. What 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys could potentially be impact players next year for a team that's still trying to, 1, find his offensive identity, and 2, try to find a way to get off the field on third down. Football is about getting off the field on third down if you're on defense. Extended drives on offense to put you in a position to be in the red zone. Because we're talking about kickers now. You still got Youngway. He got re-signed. Yeah. He's really, really good addition. Really, really good asset. So extended drives on offense, generating points in the red zone, getting off the field on third down. I think you got a bunch of guys on this draft class. Not to mention going to be groomed by some. Not to mention Tease Tabor and these guys are going to groom some of these young guys. I think these guys this year have got a really, really good shot to be really, really impactful.
The Falcons also cut Mike Davis today. So much was made about Arthur Smith. And maybe fairly or unfairly, because when you were in Tennessee, you obviously had a dude that is like that he was made in a lab. Like, you don't find running backs that look like that, right?
No,
if you did, everybody would get him a Derrick Henry, number 22, and just say, yeah, we're going to have that as our running back as well. So you just don't get that. And people said, oh, Arthur Smith likes to run the ball. And then you get Mike Davis. And I tell you, Ben, I showed you a picture somebody had of Mike Davis earlier today, and it's like, if you're a college football recruiter, look what our running back looks like. He's got thighs like a Mack truck and, huge arms. That's our running back. Unfortunately, he did not produce in that manner. And Cordell Patterson, who is a wide receiver, hybrid running back, Swiss Army knife guy, was the leading rusher on the team. Then you go out, you get a running back in the draft, and a couple of days after the draft is over, Mike Davis is now looking for a job. Can this team actually be a team that can run the football, Ben? And again, too many things on this team. You say they have nowhere to go but up. We talked earlier with, Home Team Brain League said the Falcons were dead last in running the football. We know what else they were dead last in? They were dead last in rushing the quarterback, pressures, hurries, all those statistics that really matter. So you can't run a football, which means you can't maintain possession. More likely, you keep the clock moving and move the chains. You can't. Think about this, Ben. So you can't run the ball. You can't score in the red zone very well, and you can't get after the quarterback at all. Dead last in the National Football League. Nowhere to go but up. But those are, you and I were joking about this. You put all that out there, and you go, how in the world did the Falcons win as many games as they did?
Yep.
Can't run, can't rush the quarterback, can't pressure the quarterback, and you're horrible in the red zone. And you weren't picking number one?
Come on.
Matt Ryan did a heck of a job salvaging something, I guess. And maybe that's credit goes to Arthur Smith to say, hey, you made a little chicken salad out of something there, buddy.
Yeah.
What can they do with this group without Matt Ryan? And again, you cut Mike Davis. Do you have a feel for what Arthur Smith wants to be? Because it seems like everybody's trying to pigeonhole him and saying, I want to be the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
And that's not what they were in any stretch of the imagination.
I think what they want to be on offense, Kevin, is they want to be teams that run the football, the complementary football, running the football, and they want to get guys on the perimeter that are big. They want big guys. It's like they say, what kind of receiver do we want? We want big, tall, lean, fast receivers. We want 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'2". All right, that's height. Right. So what I lack in athleticism, I make up in height, wingspan, and catch radius. Right. What do you want to be in the running game? I want to be, I don't know, there. I want to actually be there to be able to say, if it's 31, we can get it to extend drives. Right? We can run the ball on first down to make up manageable second and third downs. Not, man, we just running the ball on first down and then we behind the chains now on second and third. If you are on defense, you're trying to say we can get off the field on third down. A.J. Terrell, one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league. You bring over a guy in Casey Hayward that's been an all-pro caliber player. You bring over a guy in Tease Tabor that's found his footing. So you got a slot corner and an outside corner. And then you talk about Lorenzo Carter, because these guys are signing 1-year deals. So Atlanta say, we believe in you, not just enough for you to be around here after a year. I mean, who knows, Kevin? Can they make it? Because this Atlanta team that has no money in 2022 will be able to break the bank in 2023. What type of team do you want to look like in 2023? A team that's just giving out money, that's not going nowhere, or a team that's saying, hey, man, we got something worth, coming to?
And again, that's an interesting point, Ben, because I think watch what just happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars versus what do the Falcons do next year? Because it's one thing to have money, right? It's one thing to say we have all this cash under the cap that we can spend, but you got to spend it right. How do they go out? Because a lot of people accuse Trent Baalke. You're just throwing money at problems, right? Hey, we need receivers. Hey, Jones, here you go. Yeah, we're going to throw Evan Ingram. Here we go. Throw some money at the problem and see what sticks. And I think if you're Falcons, you got to be very careful about that. We've got more to come. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, glad you were with us. Counting you down towards Braves baseball, Braves and Mets starting a 4-game series, 4 games in 3 days, doubleheader tomorrow. So we will not be with you on the show. We'll have Braves baseball tomorrow afternoon. But let's go to the phones quickly here post-draft. Let's go to Ray. Ray, thanks for listening. You're live here on 3 and Out.
Hey, guys. How y'all?
Doing good.
Good. Just to comment on the Falcons and the draft and whatnot. You know, of course, these things don't always go, the way we fans think it's going to go, or even the experts. But they say a team takes on the personality of its coach, but it also takes on the physical form, the preferred physical form that the coach wants. And I think what we're seeing is what Arthur Smith wants out of the offense. I mean, he wants a quarterback with mobility, and that's nothing against Matt Ryan. Great guy, great quarterback. But this is what Arthur Smith prefers. You sign Mariota, and then you get Desmond Ritter. If he wanted a guy to just stand in the pocket, he's got an arm on him, he could have waited even later and taken Carson Strong, but that's not what he did. When you look at the receiver group and everything, and Ben laid it out really well, all your skill positions on offense, these guys got size. And I think what it is Arthur Smith is going to go, you know what, we may or may not be the fastest, but we're going to come at you with this size and this physicality. You are going to work every single time. And it is, in my opinion, it is easier to add speed later than it is to add size and physicality later. You're either physical and big up front right off the jump, and that's what you're building, or you're not. And for the longest time, the Falcons have not been. You had a guy like Justin Shaver. Yeah, he's a late-round pick, but guess what? That guy's a mauler in the run game. Does his pass pro need help? Sure, but guess what? You got a mobile quarterback, and you got big weapons, which means who's getting jammed at the line of scrimmage? Tell me, which one of these guys are you going to jam at the line of scrimmage? So they're going to beat you up all the way down the field. That's controlling possession, controlling clock, and controlling you, because when the fourth quarter comes, are you gassed from jamming some 180-pound wide receiver at the line, or are you gassed from dealing with a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", 220, 230, who's been beating you up all game long?
And Ray, I mean, even to your point, when you think about a team like Atlanta, right? I mean, I think sometimes we don't appreciate, what was there. Matty Ice, he plugged a lot of holes because he was asked to be incredibly efficient since the time he got there. 14 years later, all right. I mean, it's because he's a cap casualty. But you talk about a guy, Marcus Mariota, who's mobile. Talk about a guy in Kyle Pitts who's proven to be very, very reliable. You talk about Cordell Patterson, his best year in the NFL was in 2021. You add Alden Tate, 6'5". You add Drake London, 6'4", 6'5". You add a Fitzpatrick, a backup tight end. You got a chance to be really, really good and really, really young, which I think is going to be very, 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 apparent for the eventual quarterback who could be in the building with a guy named Desmond Ritter.
Oh, absolutely. And guess what? All of these guys are going to block. They're all going to block. That just makes you a physical team right there.
Absolutely. Hey, Ray, we appreciate the phone call. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
And again, Ray makes great points. That may be more the style that you want to see out of Arthur Smith coming from Tennessee, is the physical, beat you up football team. And that is, I know people say you win games in the trenches. I mean, being physical and being the baddest dude on the block, that wins you a lot of time. If you can do it consistently at every position there across the board, Ben.
Well, Kevin, think about this, Kevin. I mean, if you've never seen the Falcons play, right, and then here it is, open the game of the season next year, and they offense run out there, you say, I ain't never seen this Falcon team. They go a 6'3", 6'4" quarterback. They go a 6'6" tight end. They go a backup 6'5" tight end. Wait a minute, they go a freaking receiver that's 6'5". They go to other receiver 6'5". They go to slot receiver that's 6'2". You think to yourself, is this the Falcons or the Hogs? Because something that Ray said, at a certain point, you go, who are you going to jam? Like, sometimes being big is at your to your detriment, because I want you to play how you look. Now the $50 million question, Kevin, is how fast is Drake London? We don't know. But as long as you come down with it, you can live with it. But yeah, I do think Arthur Smith needs to really have an identity, type check when it comes to year number 2. Because right now, Kevin, forget the fact that we don't know how this Falcons team is. We don't even really know who Arthur Smith is at this point.
Yeah, and again, I think we'll see how some of these guys fit in. I think you need a couple of these guys to really make impacts right away off of this draft class. We're going to hand you over to the Braves and Mets. Big series, Ben, coming up here the next 3 days, 4 games in 3 days for Atlanta. Tough roadie there in Texas. Did not play particularly well. Lost 2 of 3. I think offense still trying to find itself. You got a couple of guys who are doing it and a whole lot of guys who are trying to find it there, and it's been hot and cold, much like it was a season ago for large portions of the season, Ben, where this was a team that could score 8-9 runs, and when they do that, they win a lot of ball games, and then they score 1. And I don't know if this is a team that you feel comfortable winning a bunch of 1-0, 2-1 ball games. I think this is a team you feel more set up to win a 7-4 ball game or a 8-6 ball game. And now you're going to one of the hottest teams in Major League Baseball. The Mets off to a great start. They got a 6-game lead over you in the division. So these games, as BJ likes to say, count double. Even though it's early, big 4-game series. I think if you're Atlanta, you'd at least like to take 2 out of 4. 2 out of the 4, 3 out of the 4 would be nice. Gain a little ground and kind of set that mindset early. When we win the East, it still goes through Atlanta. You're not going to push us around Mets and things like that. So I think this is a big gut check moment early. You got your ace and Max Fried going tonight, Ben. So a chance to make a statement a little bit. I'm not saying making a statement to Major League Baseball. Make a statement to yourself and to the Mets. Hey, you've been off to a great start. You still got to beat us. Still got to come out here and prove it. You're in New York. A chance to do it on the road would be huge if you could get 3 of these 4 in the win column and a doubleheader tomorrow afternoon game on Wednesday.
Absolutely, Kevin. Listen, we keep on talking about the word identity. Right now, we really don't know who this Braves team is. We know who they could be, and that's based off what we've seen the last 4 years and the type of lineup they got now. You add Ronald Acuna Jr., you got Max Fried. Treat it like a playoff game. Like, make no mistake about it. The Braves respect everybody in this freaking division. Because everybody's good enough to beat you. The Mets good enough to beat you. Philly's good enough to beat you. Nat's good enough to beat you. The Marlins have already beaten you, right? So I just think that when you look at this Braves team, Kevin, we have to establish our identity 162 times. I know that sounds crazy, but 1, we need to show the rest of the division what they're going to have to deal with, and 2, we need to let them know that, man, we ain't going nowhere. I know we 10-13 right now, and I know people are saying, oh, the sky is falling. It is fine. I mean, Scherzer and DeGrom, you're not going to find a better 2 tandem than that in the majors, right? But this is the same Braves team that everybody's chasing, Kevin, because last time I checked, only 2 teams in this division that won the World Series in the last 3 or 4 years. That would be the Braves and the Nats. Sorry, Phils. Sorry, Mets. Sorry, Marlins. So I think that for this Braves team, Kevin, Max Fried, go out there and show why you that dude. This lineup, go out there and keep the momentum going. And Kevin, hopefully they can win this series. But you can't win game 4 until you win game 1. Let's start off with game 1.
Absolutely. And again, this is a team that I think you're seeing Ronald Acuna back. And I think the expectation, Ben, is so unbelievable. Everybody, his first game back, oh, he's going to go yard. He's going to hit a mammoth home run. No, just be yourself. Ronald Acuna. And again, you talk about a guy that is coming back. He's seen a couple of weeks of minor league pitching and a couple of games of major league pitching, did no spring training at all. So it's going to take him a minute to kind of, I think, really get back in that groove. I'm not saying he can't go out there and produce, but I think just having him back in the lineup has been helpful.
Yes.
I think he's not where he wants to be yet, but look, I think this is a team that once they find, and we saw this from the Braves in years past, when they find themselves, they are a team that's certainly capable of running off 15 out of 18 and really turning the season around. And again, it is not September yet. So I know people are like, well, the Mets are already 6 games out. Every team goes through a slump where they're going to lose 8 of 10. They're not going to play great baseball. The Mets got off to a hot start. I've seen a lot of teams get off to a hot start, and then second half of the year, body gets a little tired, start to fade a little bit. So we'll see what that has in store for the Braves. Max Fried, Chris Bassett, your pitching match tonight. We will not be here tomorrow, Ben, because of the doubleheader, and we'll join you after Braves baseball on Wednesday. Appreciate home team Brandon Leak joining us here on the program. If you missed any of the show, ESPNCoastal.com. Go to our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal on YouTube. Subscribe, and every time we go live here at 3 and Out, you'll get that notification each and every time. We will see you on Wednesday. Braves, Mets coming up next. This has been 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network.